Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Mortgages and Markets. Today is Friday, July the 10th, and we have to use the official name today because he's wearing a pink shirt. We have the official Sam.vakili. I don't know what his middle name is, doesn't matter. But Samuel, how are you today, young man?
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you for making me feel young.
Oh, hey, you're welcome. Hey, listen, you look pretty in pink, man. I don't care what they say about you. You look pretty in
Thank
pink,
you.
buddy. All
Thank
right.
you. Kind
Hey,
words on a Friday.
that's exactly when it's this hot outside, man. I don't know. Is that one of those shirts that changes colors with the heat? Because that would make a little bit
Yeah.
of sense right now,
Yeah. It
right?
gets nice and dark from the sweat stains.
Hey, with the way things are, no one should even be laughing at that. Everyone should appreciate that, right? So,
Hmm.
hey, you know what I was thinking? Just before we get into like the real serious stuff, I don't know about you, but obviously here in Waterloo region and many parts of the country, we have to wear masks now. Are you having trouble talking to people? And so my background's Italian. Okay. So
Right.
my hands fly, my face flies. I couldn't hide an emotion to save my life. Are you having trouble talking to people? Understand that your face is covered and you don't want them to misunderstand you. Have you run into that yet?
Not yet. I mean, I haven't gotten to that point. I think Monday's the official day where I'm going to have no choice but to wear it.
Yep.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. The hands are going to be flying even more than usual.
That's right. No kidding. Eh? No kidding. I'm like worrying I'm going to hit somebody just trying to express myself because you can't see my face. Well, you can see my eyes, but that's about it. So, all right, let's get on to the serious stuff and as to why everyone, I'm sure, is listening in today. So, all right. So first thing, and listen, I'm a big supporter of the newspaper group. Absolutely. But I won't lie. I was at Rexall picking something up and this headline caught my eye and I may or may not have taken a quick picture of it, but neither here nor there. So in this Toronto Star article, to give proper credit from yesterday, Thursday, July 9th, Heather Schofield here is talking about three incredibly shocking numbers. Maybe not shocking, but definitely historic, maybe is the best way to put it. So we're talking about our government having a deficit projected at $343 billion, not million, billion. $53 billion paid out in CERB as of the end of June. $53 billion. And then the other part here, I definitely want you to talk about portion of GDP equivalent to make up the emergency response is 14%. So, Sam, $343 billion deficit. First of all, for the people out there, what exactly in the grand scheme of things is a deficit and what does it mean?
So long story short, it's really the idea that we're borrowing. Right. The idea here is that as our debt levels raise, we have to fulfill these debt levels at some point. We seem to just keep pushing it out over and over and over. But at some point, this puts a big strain on the cash flow. The interest rate starts to kick in. If there's a request to actually fulfill some of these deficits, it becomes a big burden. So it kind of goes to your other part on the right side there about CERB being 53 billion, especially if this continues, because I'm starting to hear murmurs of, well, is this going to run till the end of the year? Is this going to run into 2021? The idea here is that we're just going to put ourselves in a more difficult place to fulfill this, because really the money has to come from somewhere. You can only print so much. Well, I mean, I guess you can keep printing, but it has an effect. Right. One thing I was going to mention also, so Canada's actually been stripped of its AAA rating from Fitch. So, I mean, the
What does
idea
that
here,
mean?
so bonds are rated, there's different ratings to try and give investors an idea of how risky these bonds are. Now, I mean, we're still in a reasonably good spot with an A rating, but it's not as good as a AAA rating, meaning that the likeliness of something happening to our debt instruments being fulfilled is there's a unlikely that we're not going to be able to fulfill it. So as these ratings drop, that becomes a little bit, I mean, it's a bit of a pride thing, but at the same time, it means that there's a higher risk. So other people around the world, other institutions, when they're going to buy these Canadian bonds, that means we have a lower rating, which generally means we have to give a better interest rate to justify that lower rating.
Got it. And you know what? So oddly enough, and listen, you are the brains of this show, and I'm going to consider myself the muscle, regardless, again, what people say. But if you watch the movie The Big Short, which talks about the 2008 housing crisis in the US. That's ideally what happened when they had their market crash. It was around some of those bonds and the poor ratings and stuff like that. Not exactly what we're talking about, but if you're a visual guy like me and you want to see what happened, definitely take a look at that movie. It's kind of cool that way. So, okay, so what does it mean 14% is a portion of GDP equivalent to make up the emergency response to date? What does that mean?
So GDP is your gross domestic product, right? It's how much you're actually producing as a nation.
Yep.
And so in this case, we're talking about all of Canadian GDP as a portion of that. That's how impactful or how much these different emergency responses, that's how much it's going to cost us. Now, again, this is an annual number. So for this year, it's not, an ongoing, or hopefully it's not going to be ongoing. But the simple reality is we have to come up with a way of satisfying that at some point. I don't want to freak people out and start saying, oh, taxes are going up. It may not, it may, I have no idea. That's outside of my scope of pay grade. But the simple reality here is that things are continuing to move in that direction. And obviously the government wants to do everything they can to try and support and stimulate and take care of people. And maybe we'll jump into this at some point about what's happening with rent relief now. We're starting to hear people getting evicted because of being unable to satisfy the rent and all this stuff. So,
Yeah. No, and I don't have it up on screen, but we messaged earlier on this week. There was an article, I believe it was from a U.S. firm, and they said in the U.S., obviously I know it's U.S. and we're Canada, but in the U.S., 1/3 of people were unable to make their housing shelter payment. So 33% of Americans are not paying mortgages, they're not paying their rent, they're just not paying their shelter payments. So I mean, who knows, right? I mean, the government just might have to prop this thing up until it comes back to life fully, right?
Yeah, we hope that they're going to be able to do that, or they're going to have the appetite to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the domino. We keep talking about this probably for 3 or 4 months now, is as these dominoes start to push, it has a trickle down effect. Right? If you can't pay those landlords can't cover their costs. If they can't cover their costs, either they have to dip into their personal savings or they have to sell those properties. Now you have an influx of supply and blah, 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 blah. On we go.
Yeah, exactly. All right, moving right along. So big news this week. Canadian housing starts up again in June. Holy cow. Okay, so a huge good news. With housing starts now increasing, up 36% in June from May. That's huge. That's a big indicator that things are recovering, right? Again, like you said, we're not there yet, but people are back to work. People are still able to close, and June is arguably one of the busiest months of the year, right? So the fact that housing starts are up, I mean, that's huge. Okay, absolutely huge. And I think where I struggle a little bit is CERB is such a huge part of this. However, housing starts are up, right? So it's almost like, I don't know, what do you think? It seems a little bit odd, no?
Yeah, I mean, Canadians love their houses. Let's be honest.
They do, yeah.
We really do. It's a pride thing, maybe. I don't know. We just seem to love housing. I mean, it makes sense. We should all own a property if we can afford to, and it makes sense for us, financially, because you're also investing in yourself at the same time. But to your point, the jobs are starting to come back. However, there's murmurs of, are we going to see a stall? Like, have jobs that can come back already come back? But there's going to potentially be a portion of those jobs that may not come back as quickly.
Yeah.
So that's going to be curious. And then it goes back to this point about the CERB. If they have to continue supporting that segment of Canadians that cannot get back to work, it puts a strain on the system.
Of course.
Right?
Well, and then the other part too is, and like you, I'm trying not to, scare everybody here. I think we're going to have a huge milestone in April, May, June, July, August, September. In September, for those of you who can't see, I'm counting with my fingers. Yeah, don't worry, your mortgage is safe with me. But September is going to be very important because that is the expiry of these 6-month mortgage deferrals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think I would say, for me anyway, a very small percentage of my clients took the deferral. However, a bigger scheme of things, again, the West is in a lot of trouble, right? We know that. The East, we haven't heard a lot, but they're a smaller part of the pie. Uh, we haven't seen what it's going to be like without a mortgage deferral. So we'll have to do a 6 month deferral kickoff show in September, Sam, you and I. But that's going to be that's the next major milestone. What happens when that happens? And then of course, how do the banks react? Right? Do
Yeah.
they say, okay, another 3 months, another 6 months? Because that's not good, right? That's not good if we got to do that. So
Yeah, I think we're all hopeful that at least some programs are available. I
yeah,
think I've heard in the States they're looking at potentially doing the same thing. So, I mean, they know how this plays out if they can't support things.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
we'll see how that plays out.
Okay, so this probably goes a little bit hand in hand with housing starts. If you can build houses, you've got jobs. Okay, so employment surged. I mean, that's a big word to use. Surged in June. Okay, so employment jumped by 953,000 in June. Right, so we're still down, but we're up. And
Hmm.
the unemployment rate fell to 12.3%. Crazy. We're talking about unemployment at double digits. Isn't that just crazy to think about, considering where our economy has been? But long story short, again, it's people are now back to work. It's slow, but you know what? We're going in the right direction, bud. What do you think?
Yeah, we're getting there. We're inching there. And it probably makes sense that we're going to see, at least in the short term, a bigger, more robust rebound, considering how many jobs were kind of put on hiatus. Um, and that's what I was kind of saying before. I think it's natural to expect that, especially right now, because there are a lot of jobs that can be brought back because of the weather and because we're outdoors and all that
Yeah,
stuff. The question will be is, will there be a stall, which would not be completely inconceivable. And this comes in both the market side of things as well as the job market side of things, or the labor market. So it's curious to see how this plays out. If we can continue on this track, that is a best case scenario, because once we get our jobs back, a lot of other things fall in line.
total speculation. Call it conspiracy theory. Do you think the government stops CERB to try to decrease unemployment and get people out there working? Do you think that happens? I just came up with that like right now.
I wouldn't be surprised if they perhaps adjust it. How about
Good. I
that?
like that. Okay. Yep.
I don't
Yep.
think that they would go with a cold turkey, like pull the rug under,
Hmm.
um, because that could have a very dangerous impact. That's a risky gamble. I don't know if they want to take that, but I wouldn't be
Yeah.
completely surprised if they adjust it, because I have heard anecdotally that there are some individuals out there that are perhaps not as incentivized to go back. And so I think the noise in the numbers is this 12.3, how much of that are jobs that can come back, but people don't want to fulfill those jobs? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. And and you know what? That goes both ways on the employer, I think, and the individual side. Because if you're the employer, is it one of those things where you say, okay, instead of us doing EI, hey, employee, do you want to just take the CERB? And I'll say you can't work. I don't know. I'm not a business owner in that scenario, but is that maybe something that's happening? Am I an employee that maybe I make more money on CERB and, I don't want to go back to work? Or am I an employee who maybe can't go back to work because I am what's the word, immune deficient, or it's not safe,
Right.
which again, that's a
Right.
whole other issue. So this CERB payment really brings up very interesting um, talking points. And then of course there's also the other side of the world where other side of the world, and the other side of the opinion on this, where they say, well, being Canada, we should have what is it, a minimum standard income that we get from the government,
Hmm.
right? So then
Hmm.
there's that thought, and it's like, okay, what Pandora's box have we opened here with the CERB, which I think was definitely needed, but where do we go with this now? Because again, we've opened up Pandora's box here. Now, what do we do, right?
Yeah, it's challenging. That's the intricacies of both economics and the psychology that goes along with it, and the health piece, right? I know
Yeah,
there are some policies and programs in place to try and help employers cover their cost of maintaining
yeah.
employees. So I suspect that will continue, because really it just makes sense to get these people back to work. But to your point, I know there are some people that say, well, if I can make 2 grand a month as opposed to making 3 grand a month, is
A-
40 hours a week worth an extra grand? I don't know.
And I hate to say this, but it's also the summertime. right?
Right.
So if we're in the dead of winter, are more people going back? Maybe not. I don't know. And this is again, this is the
Daycare.
tough,
That's another
right?
one. You
Right.
know.
And so if again, that's another talking point. If you've got daycare to pay for and you're
Yeah.
not working, oh yeah, this is such a huge box of stuff to deal with, right? And we've opened it up now. We've opened it up, right? So
Mhm.
anyway, hey, anything exciting coming down the pipe this week in your world, bud?
Nothing offhand. I mean, Kanye West is now going to be a presidential candidate.
I know. I can't wait to hear if that ever happens. I can't wait to hear the music for the marketing because I know some of the songs he's played, sung, whatever. That's, you know what? If Donald Trump can be president, why can't he?
Right? I'm just waiting for a Dwayne the Rock Johnson versus Oprah or Kanye. Set up a rink in the middle of the courtyard, get the people's champ out there. Let's have a time with it. It's at this point, it's just a clown competition. So
Oh man, I'm waiting for the phone call. I'm waiting for the phone call. I don't know if I can take the pay cut, but you know what? I'm waiting for the phone call. We'll see what happens. You know what I mean? So,
there you go.
Sam, stay cool. All right, we're up over 40 degrees here in southwestern Ontario again. Stay cool, and listen, we'll do this again next week and talk more. All right, bud.
Sounds good. Take care, Steve.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Again, if you're not watching on YouTube, man, you are not in the inner circle. You make sure you watch on YouTube. Have an awesome weekend, everybody.